Alright, so I may have made a bit of a mistake. I'm not sure which scene is my camera on OBS and which is like other random things because I don't label things properly. So I'm just going to click a random one and I hope it's the camera. So let's try that. Yay! It was the first one. How's it going, guys? Angus here from Maker's Muse. Welcome to the stream. As professional as always. I apologize for it being incredibly last minute. I didn't realize how quickly things had ramped up and how close we are to Christmas. This was like the only day I could do it, so I thought, why not just hang out and catch up and do one of these very rare streams that I really enjoy doing. So we got heaps of cool people in the chat. We got Billy, thanks for being here, Billy. We got Teresa, who's moderating, awesome. Actually, Billy, I'll give you mod as well, because I also trust you. We've got Flavia, Dark Bungle X, Pun, Anya, Jasper, Joe, Owen, Nova, JD Smith. Awesome. Thank you for joining me. This is crazy. I never thought I'd be in this position, ever. Oh yeah, I didn't say let's get started. Let's get started. There you go. Thanks, Vishal, for reminding me. I appreciate it. Can't start without my catchphrase. A few years ago, my sister gave me a little note saying, congrats on 30k subs. And that was like a crazy number at the time. And now here we are, and I haven't really changed what I do. It's just grown over time, and this amazing community, all of you guys have stuck around and you've come across me, and it's just been phenomenal, and I really appreciate it. And what the heck is happening already in the chat? Well, first we got Kren. Super chat party, dude, thank you so much for the $20. I really appreciate it. I don't expect any donos in this chat. This is all just about hanging out. I appreciate it. But Loyal, what the heck are you doing? Loyal Moses, you're a champion. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great Christmas too. I've seen you do this to Joel, and I really appreciate it. It's never expected. Thank you so much, guys. I'm just happy to be here, hanging out with you remotely, as a lot of us are going to be doing this Christmas. It's just how it is, and I'm okay with that. And I hope you are staying safe. Thank you again, guys, and thank you, Joe, as well. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so what's this stream about? Well, I kind of want to recap a few things, and I want to go through the chat and answer your questions, because I very rarely get a chance to answer them. And they don't have to be 3D printing related, but they can be. But also I have the right to just ignore the question if it's too personal or whatever, because, come on, guys, I am a PG channel. Bridger is asking, why does every YouTuber you enjoy have a copy of Wingspan? Wingspan is a great game, and if you haven't bought someone something for Christmas yet, and they like board games, consider getting them a copy of Wingspan. Hashtag not sponsored. It's a base building style game where you have to add to your flock, and you have different environments, and you have different birds with different powers, and it's actually really fun, not to mention the fact that it's gorgeous as well. And I've already lost position of the chat. It's already too hard to keep up on. So, if I miss your questions, I'm sorry. It's just how it is. You guys are champions. But yes, Wingspan is a great game. And you can print, I don't know where it is, you can print a tiny egg holder, like an egg carton for the eggs in the game. Like, it's adorable. Just search Wingspan egg carton. Alright. Teresa, have I given the goosies beaks and feet yet? No, I haven't. There is a model of the Untitled Goose from the Untitled Goose game, and I printed it ages ago. Unfortunately, the problem with that print is where the legs go in, it's squished in because of elephant's foot. Should have watched my own video on elephant's foot, hey? So I'll have to probably either trim it or reprint it, but I haven't added anything to the goose yet. I'm sorry, T. I know you're looking forward to that. Ashley, why do you never see me on Friday drinks? I often forget, or I'm just doing other things. I apologize. I caught one of them. It was really fun. So it's like a Discord chat for that guy who those of you who don't know. It's like for the Aussies. I often just am doing other things. I am a late riser, and then I'm usually working quite late into the evening, and I'm not on Discord very often, so I just miss it. It's not because I don't want to be there. It's just I'm usually doing other things. What the heck? Mutter what? Thanks, dude. Or dudette. Hanging some newish to 3D printing, and your videos have really helped getting things up and running with a very few issues. You're an absolute legend. You're an absolute legend. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I just enjoy sharing I've made so many mistakes over the years that I just like to help you make less mistakes by sharing them in my videos, because you only learn by trying and trial and error. And I'm really happy to hear that I've helped you out get up and running with very few issues, because early on I had many issues. Not to mention the printers were kind of crap when I started. But they're still not that great now, are they? They're cheaper, but they still have a bit of a learning curve. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. SPRS Shad. I bought an ANET A8 a while ago, and I'm incompetent. Am I incompetent, or does it need rebalancing of the bed for everyone too? The ANET A8 is a budget kit, so it will need a lot of TLC and upgrades to become reliable. Quality control issues, it's just how it is when you buy cheaper products. So especially an old A8, you will need to do it every so often, or print the myriad of upgrades the community's come up with to make it a better 3D printer than it is that leaves the factory. I'm just literally so far back in the chat, guys. I apologize. If I miss you, I'm sorry. Mark McGee, you were asking, are you much of a car guy, or do you do any 3D printer projects with cars? I'm kind of a car guy. I'm I didn't grow up in a car guy family. Like, if you ask my dad, who I love to bits, how many cylinders does your engine have? He doesn't know. So, I didn't really grow up in a car family, but I started to get a love for JDM stuff. So that's why I have a Galant, the N98 model VR4. It's like the sedan version of the Legnum, which is like a station wagon. Twin turbo V6, love it to bits. Absolute nightmare to work on or get anyone to work on it. So I don't really work on it myself because I'm just pretty incompetent. But I would like to learn more. So I do actually have a Corolla, an 89 Corolla with a 4AGE that I'm sort of tinkering with. And there's a lot of scope in that car because it's so simple to 3D print stuff. I know Michael over at Teaching Tech's done some great car videos. He's actually worked with Mighty Car Mods, who are also in Sydney, to do some really cool stuff. I know some other people doing stuff for cars. So it's one of those, like, when I have more time, I'd love to get into it. This year was meant to be working on the project car, the Corolla, but 2020 happened, so not much happened in terms of getting people around. Maybe next year, we'll see. But yeah, it's one of those things I'd like to do, but I just don't really have the time. Dia Della Tuala, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for the dono. Hey, I guess I have a little channel related to 3D printing for Hispanic audiences. Oh, awesome. What is your advice for a 10K channel? My phone is going off. Please be quiet. Honestly, don't look at the subs, the sub count. I had to learn early on that if you obsess over the size of your channel, then you won't focus on what's important, which is your enjoyment and the content that you produce. And look, a small, loyal audience is much more valuable than a massive audience that will come and go. So what I've tried to do with Maker's Muse, at least, is I try to push education and value first. So that's why I keep doing tutorials. Even though the channel's a lot bigger now, I do tutorials because I want to give you guys huge value. But also, 3D printing has that sort of that community feel around it already. So I would maybe focus on aspects of 3D printing that, like, the Hispanic community finds valuable, or from your own personal perspective, because that's incredibly valuable. No one else can give that. And just stay true to yourself and it'll grow naturally. And look, if a channel stays smaller but it's got a very loyal audience, that can be more sustainable than a channel that goes right up because of trends and then just instantly dies. And I see channels like that all the time where they will hit like a trend, they'll focus on that one trend. Like we've seen it with like the hot knife videos, the fidget spinner videos. If you try to just chase numbers, then it's not going to be sustainable over a long term. So I mean, yeah, that's how I've always viewed it. I hope that does help. And Ron Manson, you guys are crazy. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Since your review, have you worked more with the Craftbot Flow iDex? What do I think of it? You finally got it. I thought I was going to pull out the hair that I have. It's a freaking workhorse. Yes. Look, Craftbot rushed out the Flow to me and a few other reviewers early on, and we had big issues with them. No question. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was a nightmare. I wasted a lot of time. But then they fixed most of them. And then they fixed, after our reviews, mine and Joel's videos, as far as I'm aware, all of them. It was so clever that it just made mistakes. Like it wasn't reliable because it was trying to be too clever. So what I've done with mine is I fitted a 0.8mm nozzle to the right-hand side only. So when I print on it, I can say, okay, I want a 0.4 nozzle, like slow but high quality print, or I'll swap over to the 0.8 because I want a big, fast print. Because the hot ends can handle it, they can handle the throughput, and that chamber is so huge that, like, sometimes you just want things to be quicker. So I don't run dual prints on it anymore. I'll just either do a 0.4 or a 0.8 nozzle style print. And yeah, I've been using it for larger prints quite a bit. Not heaps during December, but early on I was thinking of doing another video on it because changing the nozzles is really difficult, unfortunately. So that's why I decided to just go with two separate ones and keep it like that, because it's a real pain, at least on my version, to change nozzles. But yeah, it's a really good machine. I just wish they hadn't pushed it out sooner, because then it would have saved them a lot of grief and saved me a lot of grief as well. All right, I'm going to try to catch up. Anthony Ryan, what's my favorite color? Gray. Gray with orange and purple highlights. I don't have a single favorite. THW Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro. Honestly, they both print exactly the same for me. Ender 3 Pro is a little bit better with the middle extrusion. It's a bit wider, a bit more reliable in terms of rigidity. Either one, whatever you can swing. They'll both, once you upgrade them, or not so much upgrade them, just make sure they're set up properly. They work fine. I've used both of mine for ages. Amaranth is you're asking, can you try my local filament? Okay, so I'm assuming you mean the filament that is like in your country. I've had some filament sent to me from all around the world. I've had from China, I've had from America, I've had from various countries in Europe, which is awesome. Like even Polish filaments. But like when it comes to me promoting it, it's really difficult because most of my audience is either in the States or like in countries that aren't where the filament's from. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to review or test filament and show it if people can't even buy it. But I have no issues with that. And polypropylene is an interesting one. Polypropylene is difficult to print, but if you can get it to work, it is really tough. I really do like printing with it if you can get it to stick down with the polypropylene tape. Tom, any of the Chinese Core XY systems any good? Some of you may remember my review of the Tronxy X1, the Tron XY, not X1, sorry, DO1. The DO1 was a Core XY style printer. I think it was Core XY. I don't think it was HBot. It might have been HBot, but I thought it was Core XY. Anyway, the mechanical system on it is actually really good, and I've since fitted a Hemera hot end to it. The issue is Tron XY stuffed me about, and the printer almost could have caught fire initially because they didn't have thermal runaway protection. I gave them a hard time. They had to put out new like config files, and then like from what I understand, the websites, you can't download them anymore last time I looked. So they're kind of in my bad books, so I don't really show it on the channel. But the mechanical system of the DO1 was actually really good, and I've been using it with the Hemera to print some really good prints. So yeah, take that as what you will. But yeah, they can be really good. Absolutely. That uses linear rails though. It doesn't use the V roller system. It uses linear rails in a, again, I think it's Core XY. I can't really remember. Nicholas, what do I think of Make Anything's Sharpie blender? I think Make Anything Devon is an absolute genius, and although he was right in his video that it has been done before, he's getting some really good results, especially from the translucent filament. If you guys haven't seen Devon's latest video, he's got this feeder with different Sharpie colors, and then the filament gets coated with it, the pigment, and then it melts through. Years ago, I spray painted clear PLA to get a similar effect. That was probably going to be more damaging on your hot end and extruder long term than Sharpies, but it did have a similar effect. So you can definitely do it, and it's really fun. But if you add too much pigment, your layer bonding strength, it gets really weak. Especially, and Devon found this too with silver pigments. So I found with silver spray paint, you got this really cool space age silver, but the parts were weak in the layers. They would delaminate quite easily. Thank you so much, Gandrade. Appreciate that. Joseph, happy holidays. Happy holidays to you, sir. Thank you. And Freak Show Circus. Thanks, guys. You're absolute champions. You don't have to do that at all. I'm just here to hang out. But I do really appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, wow. Unboxing project. How many total printers do you have currently, and or the most you had at one time? Right. I recently did a purge. So what I do, and unfortunately, I can't give away printers because I would feel responsible for them, and I don't sell them either because that would be wrong. So I have sort of people I know or friends of friends that I just give them to, and I'm like, the rule is you can't call me for support because I can't offer it. I don't have time. So heaps have gone. If you go back through my catalog, I've reviewed like 50 printers over the years. Some of them were loaners, but a lot of them were ones I kept. If they were really junk kits, I would take them apart, and I've got like a box of step motors, I've got a box of linear rods and rails and all sorts of bits, extruders, power supplies. But if they're decent and I don't really need it anymore because obviously I keep having to review new machines, so I need to keep using new machines, then they go off. So currently, I probably only have like 7 or 8 maybe, and not all of them are functional. The oldest that I use on a regular basis is probably the Up Mini 2. That was from 2016. I still have the Prusa MMU, but that's not working properly because the early ones were the Bowden fed thing and the tubes started having issues. Yeah, at one stage though I had like 25 taking up tons of space, but I have given them since away. Hope that answers your question. Kenneth, you're asking, or please don't scroll past. It says the whole dang 3D printing community is here. I was wondering what the chances of everyone coming together to source a BOM for a bill of materials for a YouTuber design printer. Yeah, I have had that question many times, and I mean, I've made a printer. I've got the Fallout 4 one, but I never released the files because it was pieced together, as I said, from bits of other 3D printers I had taken apart, and they weren't necessarily things you could have bought. I know people have made open source printers on YouTube and they have the bill of materials. There's definitely a lot of people who have done that already. The issue is choosing the right price point, and it's difficult now when stuff like the Ender 3 exists. Under $200 US for a printer that works. You can't really buy parts as an individual that add up to less than that, unless you're 3D printing a lot of stuff, in which case you need access or to already have a 3D printer. It's difficult. It really is. So unless you're doing it just for a hobby, it doesn't make much financial sense anymore to 3D print, to build a 3D printer from scratch. Back in the day, like 2012, a control board was $200. So it did make more sense to try to piece one together from scratch, and that's why you had the early Prusa printers and the Mendel and that. But now you'd just be doing it for the hobby, and I don't know if it's been done too often, but yeah, it has been done. Just, I don't think people are going to come together collaboratively to do it, just because of the difficulties of finding parts and keeping them reliable, keeping them accessible. Dylan's hobby is, when is my Prusa Mini review coming? It is never coming because I said no to the review unit. Basically, the reason I did is I felt there was enough info out there already to make a good choice on whether you should buy the printer or not. Teaching Tech had one very early on. Joel's since come out with a review, and Tom Salandero has come out with a review. There's heaps of people who already put out great videos on it. There's nothing else I can add, so I did say no to the review unit because they only wanted to send them out after the pre-orders had done, and that was like way past when everyone was actually questioning whether to buy it or not. So I said no. So it's not happening. And I think Joel's in the chat. If you are, dude, you're a champion. And if everyone, if people are interested in like the biggest 3D printing ever giveaway ever, Joel has something in the works. I don't know if I've given away too much. I apologize, Joel. Something's brewing on Joel's channel. License to drive. What's my favorite upgrade for a 3D printer? Favorite upgrade? It really depends on the printer, hey. I've been using the Easy Peelsy on the Ender 3 for such a long time. And it still works. The original Easy Peelsies, the magnetic sheets. So I think if you don't have a removable print surface for your printer, I would recommend getting one because they have changed my life. If a printer doesn't have a removable surface, I will usually retrofit one, because then you don't have to ruin your bed level trying to get parts off. You just take it off, and you can even hot swap if you've got spare sheets. I think that's my favorite upgrade to any printer, is just making it more user-friendly. Manus asking, any tantalizing hints of future videos? Yeah, I got a few on the table. Yeah, why not? Why not? Alright. This is a new puzzle that I've designed It's possibly the most challenging one I've ever made. It's a print-in-place secret maze, like a hidden labyrinth puzzle, with you can hear it, with a ball bearing inside. So the goal is you have to move this ball bearing into the chamber through a labyrinth to unscrew it. And it won't unscrew until you've done that. Once you do it, this is an older version, it unscrews. And you can see why the ball will restrict it from unscrewing. It has this path. This has been like months in the making. This is an old version of, whatever. I look forward to sharing this with you because it's going to make people rage. Oh, there you go. Joel has indeed shared his his link, not link. So bookmark December 23rd, 6 p.m. Pacific time, if you want to see a massive 3D printer giveaway, 3D printing giveaway. I hope I can make it, Joel. I really do. I'm so keen. It's gonna be crazy. A lot of people ask me about the Snapmaker 3. I haven't reviewed it, but you really have to go to Devin's channel because he uses the Snapmaker an awful lot. And here's the guy to ask if you are interested in that printer. The Everlost. What's my thoughts on the lifespan of a printer? That's actually a really interesting question because, yeah, you're right. It is an ever-changing industry, but the core basics of 3D printers haven't really changed. It's all been in the usability and intelligence of them, but the kinematics of them hasn't really changed too much. So again, I was saying I've been using the Up Mini 2 since 2016. That's probably the oldest printer that I use. But if you keep a machine well maintained, that's the main thing. Keep it well oiled, belts tight. Things wear out, like the belts will wear out eventually. You got to replace them. Hot ends wear out. Nozzles wear out. But overall, if you keep them in good condition, they'll print for thousands of hours. And there's no issue if you know how to level a bed. If an old machine doesn't have auto bed leveling, but you can level it yourself, does it really matter if it's old? So yeah, I think for a lot of these machines, they'll be going for years and years to come. You can always upgrade them, but the newer stuff we're seeing, at least in FDM, at least with filament-based FFF FDM machines, is just usability. So better mesh bed leveling or better filament management systems, stuff like that. Overall, the print quality's kind of stayed the same for the last 5 or 6 years, I'd say. It's just gotten a little bit more affordable. What is changing a lot is resin systems. They're now using the monochromatic LCDs, which means they can cure a lot faster each layer. But again, like the older resin systems, they have consumables, but they'll still work. So I think as long as you can get the parts you want off your printer, it doesn't matter how old it is. Matthew, what is the most expensive printer that I have used? Not me so much personally, but when I was working in the industry, I would get a lot of SLS prints done. So selective laser sintering it's a nylon powder that's laser sintered together. And those printers are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we would go in, I'd get the parts done. A lot of people don't understand this with SLS. They think it's like this magic bullet technology that doesn't need support material and the parts are strong. SLS parts aren't actually as strong as some good nylon FDM parts if they're properly done, because it's sintered, it's not fully melted. But also with SLS, the chamber's full of nylon powder and the parts shrink. So like they have to leave the chamber, it's hot, it's just below like the sintering point. They have to leave the chamber to cool down for like 48 hours before they can take the parts out. And sometimes the parts have warped and they're wrong. So even though a machine can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can still get failures all the time. So that was fun. But that's been a long time. It was a long time ago. I do not really miss using SLS. Sai is asking, is it wrong that people still do bed leveling using paper instead of a BL Touch? No, again, in some circumstances, correct leveling with a gauge or paper is better than a BL Touch, because a BL Touch can only compensate for out of level. It can't actually move your bed into level. There has been some systems that use a mechanical bed that actually will self-level with motors, but BL Touch can only compensate. So your parts you think about it, a big flat base for a box, if the bed isn't truly level, then your box isn't actually correct. It's not square. So it's actually better to manually tram. It's called tramming, correct term in CNC machinery, like or mills and that sort of thing. It's better to manually level tram your printer than use compensation. But it is a heck of a lot easier to use compensation automatically. Plug Brooks, I know you like small 3D printers. Have you looked at the M3D Micro? Yes, it's a pile of crap. I don't know what M3D is up to these days. I looked into their M3D Pro campaign and there's a lot of dissent in there. Unfortunately, the Micro was just hitting a price point that was just a bit too forced. The motors were very gutless. It was very slow. It looked nice. It was pretty, but there's no way I'd ever buy one or recommend it. The smallest printer I would actually recommend is the, see the little white one? Someone's outside. See the little white one that kind of looks like an M3D Micro? That's the Fulcrum Minibot. It's actually really good. It has an HBot configuration. It prints quite fast. That's what I'd recommend over it. 100%. But yeah, I don't know what M3D's been up to. I hope they've improved the reliability of their systems because the early M3D Micros were not well received. Justin, do I recommend the Ender 3 after 2 years? Yes, I'm more likely to recommend the Ender 3 now than I was when it first came out. Because when it first came out, it had a lot of quality control issues that were really quite bad, but now they've kind of become better because Creality's had to learn from that. So I'm more likely to recommend it now than I was back when they first came out. Unboxing project, what new technologies are you most excited about, and will you ever review a metal printing machine like the Markforged? I don't think... I have talked to Markforged. I've talked to their marketing team. I don't think my channel is a great fit because we're all about accessibility and low-cost entry-level printers and making them work for home and like hobby stuff. Markforged is, I would say, prosumer or actually just professional and industrial machines. They'd probably be more than happy to send me some samples. But in terms of a review, it doesn't make any sense for them to send me a machine for a review because of just the professional level of their ecosystem, I would say. I know that Tom got access to one early on, and I think he like shot samples with a gun, which is pretty interesting. I would probably want to use mine on combat robotic parts, but again, that's on me. I haven't designed the robot to send off to get printed. They would be more than happy to print me parts for it. I've even been in touch with people to print stuff in titanium before. I just have to get off my feet and design the parts. But in terms of a review, probably not. But you'll probably see the technology on the channel in future because it's worth showcasing. Absolutely. What is AMA? AMA means ask me anything. But I have the right to just ignore the question. But it doesn't have to be about 3D printing. I don't do these streams very often. It's really fun to hang out with you guys, especially at this current time. You know, with everything going on in the world, it's great to try to connect through these streams. It's the best. It's the best I have. It's the best we have. And I didn't expect this channel to reach 700,000 subscribers. Ever. It's been growing at a ridiculous. It's like 710 now or something. Thank you, and I'm glad a lot of older videos are being picked up by new people now, which is really interesting, because a lot of older videos sat there for a long time and now they're actually being picked up, which is really cool. I do like to see that they're actually helping out a lot of people. Inspiring creativity through technology is my thing. Did Joel get me pizza again? No, I hope not, because technically it's lunchtime, so trying to avoid pizza at the moment, but I would destroy it if it showed up. Matt, what video games am I playing? That's a good question. I think at the moment video games are really valuable as a way for us to sort of relax and disconnect. I recently played Superliminal, which is a pretty short puzzle game. If you've played Portal at all, I would highly recommend Superliminal. It's a really interesting puzzler with like a really abstract concept. It's about maybe 3 or 4 hours tops to play it like one evening, sit down and give it a shot. It's really fun. The new Subnautica Sub-Zero, I'm kind of playing, but I'm waiting for them to finish it. That's really cool. And I play heaps of Mordhau, which is a first-person slasher. You fight first-person, hand-to-hand combat with swords and shields, and it's crazy and very violent, and it's fantastic. Victor, you're asking, if you need to say one FDM for print on demand, what would be my choice? One FDM, it depends what I'm printing. If it's PLA and there's no budget, because you haven't set a budget, honestly, I do miss my Prusa Mark IIIs. I gave them away, and the person I gave them away to uses them constantly, and they're still good. They're still going. But I would, probably be a Mark III. Or, I don't know. I still use the Up Mini 2 heaps, as like I said. Yeah, I'm sorry to be a Prusa fanboy, but Prusa Mark III, there it is. That was the most reliable FDM machine I've had for PLA prints to date. I would say the Artillery Sidewinder is better value for bigger prints, and I put a 0.8 nozzle on that, and it was just awesome, but it was not as reliable as my Prusa Mark IIIs. Did I get a haircut? I sure did. I'm not really happy with it. Just like, it's got this random long bit over shaved, like, what the heck, but it is what it is, and knowing my hair, you guys know how quickly it grows. It's going to be a mop, like, tomorrow, so, oh well. Lagging. Am I lagging, or is it just UT? My internet hasn't been great recently, unfortunately. Origami 101, Angus, can you print a Rubik's Cube? I've printed several already. Go back in time and watch some of the videos where I've done I call them 3x3 twisty puzzles, because apparently Rubik's Cube still controls the trademark of Rubik's, the company. So I've made a file that you can use to like cookie cutter any model. Like, let's say you 3D scan an apple, you can cookie cutter the 3x3 twisty puzzle, shape into it, print the pieces out, and then you have a Rubik's Cube apple. I've done a couple of videos already on that, absolutely. Kaylee Rigsby, do you think I'll do any more video game file ripping? Probably not, because it's become really difficult. Early games built on the early Unreal Engines were kind of easy to just dive in and unpack files, but modern games, especially recently, tend to be very difficult to get the models out of. So you have to wait for the community to come in with like file rippers and unarchivers and things like that, unpackers, and I just don't really have the time to invest in it at the moment. There's a few games I'd like to rip from, but I think that Error is slowly getting harder and harder to do, because each game is different. Each game needs like 4 different programs that are really buggy because they're made by the community and that sort of thing. So not for a while, I don't think. Rob Jedi, do I back any 3D model Patreons? I back Clockspring, because he does those awesome print-in-place models. Oh, I need some water. LTTstore.com. I got sold. I'll tell you what, though. In terms of like drinking from it, it's not that great. It keeps water cool, but it's really difficult to drink from. It is a decent bottle, though. Where's my affiliate link, Linus? James, hey, Makers Muse, are you going to be doing any more projects that the community can make? Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be making heaps more 3D prints that you guys can print. That's what I do. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to design things that you can find joy in printing, whether they help you functionally, or like they're practical prints, or they're puzzles, or they're interesting mechanisms. 100%. That's my jam. I will continue to do that forever. Jaden, you going to be seeing any more combat robot videos? I want to do ant weights, yes. I know you just mentioned ant weights. For those who don't know, ant weights are 150-gram combat robots. So they're tiny, and yes, I know the term robots upsets some people. They're remote-controlled toys, essentially, with weapons on them. Doesn't stop them being incredibly fun and a fantastic learning tool for people to learn about material science, engineering, 3D modeling, design, and electronics. So yeah, I did have plans to make an ant weight this year, but because of COVID, didn't really pan out because there was no events. But I do have plans to make an ant weight at some point, absolutely. Because it's become very affordable, and with a 3D printer, you can literally print the whole frame and just assemble it. It's really fun, if not a little bit fiddly. Toxic, you're asking about the Big Tree Tech SKR Mini V2. I have no experience using it, unfortunately, so I can't really comment on it. I haven't changed any control boards in Ender 3. Creality did send their 32-bit board to upgrade the Ender 3 Max that I unboxed on the channel and did a written review on my Patreon. They sent, because one of my biggest complaints, and this is one of Chuck Hellebuck's complaints as well, is they put an 8-bit board in this new printer and the price point didn't make sense. So they sent a 32-bit board. Unfortunately for them, I've already given the printer away, and I said don't send it. So sorry guys, you only get one shot when you get reviews. But I don't have any experience with actually swapping boards on the Ender 3 series. Dylan, is Popeye still alive? Popeye is more than alive. He shows up pretty much every day. I just don't make content around him all the time because he's a wild bird, and I don't really want to I don't want to exploit him, I guess. But also it takes a very long time to design those puzzles. So yeah, he is absolutely still alive. He brings his mates around sometimes. They are raucous and adorable. Andrew, do I still use the Nnet A8 Plus? No, I do not. Oh, Cash, I just saw your message. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your videos. You and the nerd, probably the two biggest reasons I started 3D printing as a hobby. Awesome to hear. Thank you so much. I hope this covers a pack of your preferred brews. Yes, it does. I have a local microbrewery, and they do a really nice NEPA, which is a New England IPA. So yes, it will go towards that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Joseph, what's my least favorite part of 3D printing? And do I think it's something that can be solved in future printers? Yeah, I think my least favorite part is the filament management. Like, how many rolls do we have that are like basically empty, but you don't know what to do with them? Even with filament sensors or runout sensors, they're a real pain. A lot of the printers, they're just before or just after the extruder. So like it goes through the extruder and then it runs out, and then you can't easily get it out again, especially with a Bowden, because you have to push it forwards before pulling out the remainder. So something just, the whole spool system is really annoying because you end up with these giant spools with like a little bit of filament on them, and then you leave them for a few weeks, and then they're covered in dust and they're brittle. I don't want cartridges because then people will put chips in them, but I would like something that makes the management system easy, where you put it in and it runs out, you just put another one in and you're good to go. I know that's a dumb complaint, but yeah. I hate having so many spools that are just basically empty, and I don't want to commit to putting them on the printer because I know they'll run out in an hour or two and the print's 10 hours. Portal's asking an interesting question. You're asking, will VR have any impact on 3D printing? Printing itself, no, but 3D design, hugely yes. It already has had a huge impact on 3D design. Devon, I've seen experiment with 3D modeling in VR. I've got some friends who have VR headsets and they've done 3D modeling. They're actually really good at it. It's not a gimmick. Like 3D modeling in free space, in 3D space, virtually, it's like giant bits of clay and you form it, and they're doing really good stuff with it. It's actually a legitimate way of modeling. It's not a gimmick. And that is absolutely changing how people 3D model. Once you start mixing it with like augmented reality as well, imagine you've got like a car in front of you and you start approaching it, you can start like imagining, okay, no, I want this part to be a bit more flowy, I want this to be bigger, smaller. You can start overlaying changes in real time with like virtual modeling. That's absolutely changing. Guaranteed it's going to be huge. But 3D printing, yeah, that's just, once it's printing, the machine does it. You don't really need to be involved. That's my thoughts. Dark Bungle just gave you a product idea to solve filament management. Mate, if you solve that problem, I will buy like 10 of them. A lot of people have like filament boxes and that sort of thing, but again, loading the boxes is hard. It's makes it more difficult than loading the filament into the printer, so I don't bother using the filament boxes. They work for other people though. I just personally not a big fan. Nicholas, have I ever used the Ender Extender Kit? Is it worth the upgrade? I am working on the current largest one they sell. I wish they didn't send the biggest one. It's 400, 400, 500 millimeters. It doesn't make any sense to be that big. I wanted them like a smaller one. It's not reliable at the moment for me. That's just how it's going right now. They did send a second motor and lead screw to upgrade it to give it more than, because you can't like cantilever 400 millimeters is madness. But the problem is when you add a second motor, it halves the motor current. So I'm finding that the lead screws bind up. So I'm gonna have to turn the current up, and it's just too much dicking about. In my opinion, to go that big on a platform that small. I think the slightly bigger ones make tons of sense, but 400, 400, 500 is probably pushing it. But again, I need to play with it. It's just taking longer than I expected, and that's just my experience so far. Jordan, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hope all is going well in Canada. Thank you for the $14 Canadian. You guys have funny money too, don't you? You have like the plastic, colorful money that we have. Jared, what's the hardest thing for 3D printing for beginners to look out for? The first layer. The first layer accuracy is the hardest thing to understand. Spend your time getting that first layer right, because if it's too close, the nozzle will dig into the bed and the printer will grind the filament. Too far away, the prints won't stick. And that's by far the biggest complaint beginners have, is like 3D printing is so unreliable, my prints keep failing. Make sure it's stuck down properly, the bed's properly prepared, and you're going to eliminate 90% of your early issues. That's the biggest one. Woo. Kyle, am I going to do anything about the Ender 6? No plans. Oh, Kyle, thanks so much, man. Nice to hear from you. You didn't have to do that. Thanks for the help over the years. Your hints have helped me start a hobby that supports my other hobbies. That is awesome. There's nothing better than a hobby starting to help you sort of explore others. I've started to do other stuff this year. I really, 3D printing isn't my identity. It's just something I find very useful. I've always said that it's a tool to me to do things. So it's awesome to hear that you're doing other stuff using 3D printing as like a launch pad. That's really cool to hear. Carl McDept, best tips for working with PETG. What I've found with PETG is a lot of people complain that it's really stringy, which is to a degree true. But what I've had to learn is that it actually absorbs moisture really quickly, at least here in humid, where I live in humid Sydney. So I had to find got a cheap dehydrator, and I put the PETG in it for maybe just a few hours, and it makes the prints so much better. Absolutely so much better than just leaving it out and then printing with it. So that's, yeah, PETG absorbs moisture way more than I ever expected. That's what I found makes my PETG prints much better. But also keep in mind that PETG can, it's stronger than to a degree PLA, but it shatters when it gives way violently. So just be aware that if you're using it for structural things, it can be kind of dangerous. If it gives way quickly, it can shatter. Not along the layers, just through the part, the material can give way quite brittly. Thanks, Mark Steen. Appreciate the £5. Is that pounds or euro? Yeah, pounds. Either way, wherever you are, thank you so much. And I hope you're staying safe. What other hobbies do I have? I do a ton of music, which you can see all this stuff here around me. And there. I did music as a kid, and I sort of stopped for a while because I didn't have any gear or space. And then this year I'm like, stuff it. I'm at home a lot. I'm going to get back into electronic music. So all the music here on the channel is stuff I make. I do it just for myself. I don't have a genre as such. I just make it for myself. I really enjoy it. And yeah, that's also what I do. Josh is asking, at what point of upgrading is a printer no longer the original printer? Isn't that like a thought experiment? Like you upgrade like a car or a vintage aircraft, and then there's a certain point where it's no longer the same thing because it's been upgraded and restored so much. Like, or like one bolt in the landing gear is from the original plane, but the rest is new. Is it still... There's that... I think you're leading me into that. There's definitely a thought experiment in there of like, what is original when... Like, how much percentage is changed and then it's no longer the same thing. It's transcended the original. I do like that. Thomas, do I have any pets? Not officially, but I have Popeye, who's the wild cockatoo, and his friends. No, I don't have any cats, dogs, pets. I used to have fish. I used to keep shell-dwelling cichlids, which are tiny little fish that live in, like, shells, like, discarded shells as their homes, and they move pebbles into a, like, little protective crater. And I actually bred them, surprisingly. They're very, very fun. That was a long time ago, and I sold them all. Frank, am I wearing pants right now? Sort of. I'm wearing swimming boxers because it's very humid and hot. But yes, it's kosher. Sewing machine, yes, that is a sewing machine. It's a vintage sewing machine that I love because sewing machines have cool mechanics, and it was $5 at the tip, and I don't know why someone threw it away. It's gorgeous. It's mine now, and yes. Everyone points out the sewing machine. Mr. Alexander, what's my favorite DAW? Which, for people who don't know, is a digital audio workspace. I use Cubase. Mostly because I always use Cubase since it was on a floppy disk when I was very young, and it's like 3D modeling software. Once you know a system, you kind of stick with it. So I've just been upgrading Cubase over the years to, I think 10.5 is the latest one I've got. It's more powerful than I'll ever need. But yeah, it works for me. It's good for MIDI stuff. It's not very good for audio manipulation. It's getting better, but mostly it's just good for what I do with my MIDI stuff. Can I play you a short song? Sadly not. I looked into it. So the microphone feeding into OBS is its own like audio path, but when I fire Cubase up, it takes control of the audio path with a special low latency driver, because otherwise if you press a note, it's going to like be like, you'd be like dong dong, like it takes a while to play to hear it, but so it uses a special quick low latency driver, but it means it takes over and it can't be fed into anything else. So sadly not. I did try to make it work at some stage, but it can't be done. Not right now. Yeah, license to drive, I appreciate that. That's why I never called my channel anything to do with 3D printing. It's Maker's Muse. It's stuff that inspires making and projects. Because it might not always be about 3D printing, guys. Like, I don't know what's around the corner. Like, VR already was an interesting thing that grew. We don't know where it's going. And I like to use machines and tools to make stuff. And I will always try to show that and try to inspire what you might want to make with the machines and tools that you might get access to. That's my goal. Trajectory unknown. Apology if this question's already been asked. I just got here. Well, thanks for joining. You mentioned if you wanted to make a game with some of these shapes in one of your vids. Oh, I know what you're talking about. So you're asking if I still had plans to make a game around based around like oloids or sphericons and that sort of thing. I haven't thought of anything decent to do, but that's still not something I've abandoned. I showed this earlier in the stream. It's like a puzzle I've been working on and off for a few months. These things take a long time, and I'll just be in bed and I'll think of the next thing I want to change or try, and then I'll model it and print it. So I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. I just don't really have any immediate plans. But I do really think oloids and stuff like the bicylinders, where they roll only in 90-degree directions from each other, perpendicular, they have some potential for games, 100%. So we'll see how we go. Hey Vishal, thanks dude, appreciate it. Which vid do I think brought me the most new subscribers and thoughts on failed Kickstarters? Okay, so the vids that bring me the most subscribers are definitely the weird rolling shapes ones, like the oloids. A lot of people come in through that. Those videos went crazy viral, but it's only a small percentage that subscribe. But in terms of the failed Kickstarters, I mean, I talked about I did a recent video on scams. The percentage of failed Kickstarters has made me stop doing that would you back it style of video. I will not do that kind of thing. And I'm really resistant to even mention Kickstarters. The only reason I talked about the 3D print mill, the Naomi Wu's the CR30 from Creality, is because it was something new. It was a big company like Creality making a unusual printer. They didn't design the belt printer. They didn't come up with the concept, but they designed the CR30 with the collaboration of Knack and Bill Steele and his original designs. So that's why I did it, but I made very sure in that video to say, look, it's a Kickstarter, you may not get it, because so many have failed, and Kickstarter is so complicit with the theft of millions upon millions of dollars. And look, some of these Kickstarter campaigns failed because of mismanagement, but some of them were outright scams. No question. They were from the start designed to scam people for money with this structured response of updates of things going wrong and this and that. Some of them were almost too choreographed to believe that they had just gone wrong. To which I think they're disgusting and they can get stuffed, and Kickstarter can get stuffed as well. Personal opinions. Do I use any other software for 3D printing designs or just Fusion 360? Brandon is asking. I mostly just use Fusion 360 now. I originally used to use SolidWorks, but I don't have access to that anymore because I'm not a student, nor am I working at a company that has it. So I use Fusion 360, but we'll see how long that lasts because they're cutting back on the free plan quite a bit. You can still get it for free, but it's like a yearly thing you have to keep fighting them for to maintain getting a free access to it, and they keep cutting features away. So they're mistaken if they think I'm going to just stay with it because I'm in bed with it now, because I know how to use it. I will move to other systems if I need to for the sake of the community, because you guys need good free software to start modeling, because why should you pay $300 a year for software if you're not sure you're going to get into it? If you are 3D modeling every day, it's a bargain price compared to SolidWorks or other high-end CAD programs. So it makes sense for me, but it doesn't make sense for me to keep teaching it if they keep cutting away at it. You got me on rants, guys. You got me ranting. Windows 10.5. Wow, what a good quality edition of Windows. What's my PC setup like? I've got a hacked together Ryzen system. I think it's Ryzen 7 something. I can't remember which one it is. With a 1660 Super and 32 gigs of DDR4. It's all right. It's fine. You don't need a high-end system, like a ridiculously expensive system, to 3D model or even make video content anymore. I don't film in 4K yet, so the system's fine and it keeps up for that. But I find a really fast M.2 SSD is critical for loading up stuff quickly. So I use that, and I use like a bigger, I think it's like 6 terabyte hard drive, which then I have a backup of for the footage that I keep. Because I keep about 3 years of footage currently until I just archive it off into external hard drives forever. Jaden, have I looked into embedding more programmable aspects into my prints? Yes, I'm just really... I'm not going to say I'm bad at code, I just really don't have the patience to learn coding. Because if I've learned anything, it's that you need to have the patience to work through things. Like, people aren't just bad at stuff. Like, oh, I'm bad at drawing. No, you just don't have the patience or the interest to learn how to draw because it takes a very long time. I just don't have that interest in coding. So I would like to absolutely do more coding stuff. I just haven't had the interest to invest the time. I will say though, I got sent something from BQ. So for you guys who haven't seen Big Tree Tech, they did the recent BQ BX. That was another Kickstarter that I kind of let slide because they're a decent company, and it actually was a pretty interesting machine. Let me show you this. Oh, where is it? No, it's the wrong box. I have to grab it. It's worth showing. You all got to see my swim shorts. All right. This is an Arduino. So, Big Tree Tech have produced the RGB Duinos, the RGB Duino Uno, and it's fully printed, like full color. It's not screen print, as far as I'm aware. It's an Arduino with lots of RGB LEDs on it. So I'll probably do a silly video based on that. But I mean, as a technology, that's awesome. And also, look at it. It's a pink Arduino. They have a duck one as well. So I might do something for that. But in general, I don't tend to do coding because I just don't. It doesn't interest me personally to learn it enough. Lewd. Oh yeah. So it's a Luduino. No, it's a Arduino waifu. And they're cheap. They're like $6 or $7 US or something. Like, yeah, RGB Duino. Go hook them up. Aaron, you're asking what's my favorite home automation project. Look, again, I don't really do much of that sort of stuff. I do use Wi-Fi activated switches for like the lights a lot. So like the backlights, I've used them to turn printer banks on when I've had, like, for example, the CraftBot Flow. I would turn that on remotely and then log into it remotely and that sort of thing. I just don't really do much automation stuff. It, again, doesn't really hugely interest me. It'd be insincere to make content about it, I feel. So... yeah, Jay, you're talking about Neopixels. I have a sheet of Neopixels and, like, meters of Neopixels that I used. I use them for my monitor has like a mood light backlighting. I think it's still attached. Yeah, it's still there. I've used Neopixels before. The code for that's easy. It's like demo stuff that you can modify. I've done that before. Just getting enough power to it's difficult. Soon is asking, I'm making a large fursuit mask and the PLA I've been using causes the prints to break easily and not survive a 1 meter drop test. Should I use a different filament or what should I do? The issue with PLA, as you're finding, is it can be quite brittle. And also, it doesn't have good temperature resistance, so if you leave that mask in the car, at least in Australia on a hot summer day, it'll probably start to deform, which would be an absolute disaster. I don't know what printer you have, but if you can get Petg to work, that would be better. Or I've found if you want to print a mask, print it with a larger nozzle. Like, if I was going to do a fursuit mask, I'd do like the 0.8mm nozzle. Because then you get it's quicker for a start. You don't need the quality because you're covering it up. and I think that would give you better layer bonding strength, because you just use 2 fat perimeters, and it'd be a bit better. It'd still be brittle though. Petg would be a bit better than PLA, but I think that'd make it a little bit better. Core Walker, where in Australia do I live? I'm not going to tell you exactly where I live, but I'm near Sydney. So Sydney is, yeah, like, it's not the capital of Australia because ACT is stupid. They couldn't decide between Sydney and Melbourne, but it's a pretty big city here in Australia, and yeah, it's nice. You've seen my videos of the birds. It's a nice place. Da, 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 Christian is asking, how much do I think 3D printing will evolve in the next 10 to 15 years? I've been asked this quite a few times. I really think we're going to start to see more desktop size. Think like a normal printer, like an inkjet printer, but you have an inkjet head that's actually full of resin, UV curable resin, and it's got different types of resin. So it's got like different colors. It's got support material resin, and it's got a UV lamp to cure it. So what it'll do is print out layers and then swipe it with a UV light to cure it. Print out layers, swipe it with a UV light to cure it. That technology already exists. It's already existed for ages in the objet systems, but it's very expensive. Over the next few years, those patents will start expiring, and we'll start to see it smaller and more accessible and become more consumer. It's not really going to be the tinkerer hobby and community around it anymore. It's going to be more, we're printing objects in 3D as a tool, like we use our 2D printer to print things. I think that's going to become the next big thing. And it's going to be completely hands-off. And it's going to cost you a lot because you have to buy the cartridges. Because that's just how this technology works. I'm not happy with it, but it's how it's going to work, I reckon. Jason's asking about metal 3D printers. I think they're incredible, but again, I mentioned at the start of the stream, they're somewhat inaccessible to the greater community, so I don't generally focus on them because they're an industrial sort of thing. I've had a few metal prints done. I've even had people offer me, I can get printed stuff in titanium, but they're not going to become cheap because the technology to melt metal is just, the physics don't allow for it to become cheap. It's just you need to heat the heat up, which costs a lot of money. You need to use high power lasers or electron beams, and it uses a lot of money. Even if you use technology that uses a binder, and you need to then put it in a kiln to sinter it, the kiln costs a lot of money. So I think it's really cool, and I will still do stuff on it in the future, but I'm not going to delve into it too much because I just focus on the more accessible side of 3D printing generally. That's what interests me the most. Sorry. Throat's getting sore from talking so much. Just talking to myself, talking to you guys. Abstract saying get a lathe. I used to have a lathe, actually. I want to get more metalwork stuff because sometimes it's better to just machine stuff out of metal, but I don't have the space right now. And no, I'm not in the northern beaches, luckily. Unfortunately, we had a slight mishap with the COVIDs escaping in the northern beaches of Sydney. So we're fine where we are, but they're locked down over Christmas. Good job, guys. It pales in comparison to most of the rest of the world. I do really sympathise if you're in the States or if you're in the UK or other countries right now that are really suffering. I hope you're staying safe, because it's not fun for anyone. Jack's saying I've got had a 3D printer for over 2 years now, and I feel like it's time for an upgrade. What would I recommend? I don't know, man. You haven't given me a budget or what you print or how big you print. I can't really specifically tell you what to buy. I could just give you like a dismissive like Ender 3 response. It really depends. You got to make that choice for yourself. I can only sort of review things on the market and try to inform best I can that you make an informed choice. Sorry. That's why I made a video course on buying 3D printers. Because there's just so many options. There's so many. And some of them are from really small manufacturers that people don't even acknowledge. And they're really good for certain use cases. Like the CR30 was a great example. That's a really specific use case printer. People are saying, should I buy this or another one? It's like, well, you kind of need both if you want to print stuff the CR30 does well. Because it's not going to do stuff like a normal regular 3D printer does well. It will do stuff differently. So it's very specific use cases that should drive your purchase decisions. Because only you know what you want to print. Kren, did I have one of the mini metal lathes? No, it wasn't too small. I had a Sieg C6, I think they were called. So, I mean, the chuck's about that big. So not too small. It was very powerful for what I needed it to do. When I originally went to WA for a few years, so I went across the country and I just had to sell it. And I know for a fact it never got used. It went to someone who was like kind of interested, sold it for $500, if that. Like, it was worth 3 times that at least, or more, like 4 times. And I don't think it ever got used again. Sandcasted, and the sandcasting quality was rubbish on it, but at least it did what I wanted it to do. Amazimations? would I ever want to do a community design off where subscribers submit designs to complete? Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're asking, would I ever want to do like a community challenge where people submit designs to solve a problem? I've thought about it. I just haven't really been organized enough. I know that Devon has done like design challenges based around his models. He has done that before. It's really lots of fun. Something to think about. Haven't really thought about it too much myself. But yeah, it could be fun getting people's designs to solve problems. Get that sort of community crowdsourced design aspect going. Could be fun. Jaden, you're asking if I've thought about designing custom PCBs and placing 3D prints around them. Again, the custom PCB electronic stuff sort of goes hand in hand with my interest in coding, as in I'm not hugely interested. And I haven't had the time to learn PCB design software, even though I did use it a very long time ago. I would need a very specific case to do it. I know the companies have been busting to sponsor me for it, like PCB Way and JEL PCB, I think they're called. They've worked with a few other 3D printing YouTubers before. They would love for me to do something like that. I just haven't really thought about the project that I'd like to do that I want to invest my time into. But yeah, it could be cool. I would like to do some sort of music sequencer at some point, and that would probably need a custom PCB. But it would probably still be Arduino based, because that's really all I know. But it might be interesting to make it interesting in terms of its design. Or maybe like a PCB for an ant weight. The PCB is the frame of the ant weight. A little combat robot. That could be fun too. Stony from T-Ball. What audio interface am I using? I'm using the UR22, the Steinberg UR22, which is really old and I love it. So it's got 2 inputs for XLR, and it has phantom power, so that means this microphone I can use, which is a condenser mic with a decent size not condenser, sorry, diaphragm, I think. I can't talk. Anyway, it needs phantom power to work. And yeah, it's good. I love it. It's bulletproof. Steinberg make good stuff. I'm not biased at all. Yeah, Daniel's right. Fritzing is actually really interesting. Fritzing, I have used a long time ago. In terms of circuit board design, it's like a virtual breadboard. You are correct. I should look into it again. Weirdest use for a 3D printer. I've seen people print t-shirts. So they put a t-shirt down and then used like flexible filament to print a logo on t-shirts. I think RC Lifeon's done it, and a few other guys, like Preston from Press Reset did it years ago. Yeah, so you like put a t-shirt on the bed and you print flexible filament onto it to make like a logo. That's probably the weirdest thing I've seen like a regular printer used for. Thanks, Owen. I appreciate the $5. Keep going. I love your 3D printing coverage and need more. I will indeed expand and I will show more. Heart Custom Woodworking, for your recommendation on my CR10 and your help getting it up and going. I've been having a lot of fun with it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. The CR10s were the biggest, hottest thing of like, I think 2018 or maybe even 2017. 2017. They're still good printers. Like that's what put Creality on the map, was the CR10 back then. So I'm really glad to hear you got it up and going and working well. Dark Bungle, thanks so much for the $5. I'd love your opinion on whether any consumer FDM multi-filament solution is actually worth the hassle for a home tinkerer. You really have to want multi-material for it to be worth your efforts, because personally I don't see the value in it, because if I want something a different color, I'll print it in parts and assemble it, or I'll paint it. Having said that, some people find it really valuable because it's integrated and it's in the plastic, the color's in the plastic, so you can't rub it off like paint. I'm testing a Wanhao at the moment. It's like the D12, and it's got a 2-in-1 extruder, Bowden 2-into-1 nozzle. So the purge blocks for 2-in-1 are huge. They make the print take forever, and they waste filament. And it means your general normal color prints are also not that great, because you have to sacrifice a lot of control to get that 2-into-1 interface. Again, having said that, it might be worthwhile your effort. The best way to do multi-filament is IDEX, in my experience. That's where you have the two separate controlled extruders, and that means you can do proper multi-material, which might be what you're after, because that has, in my opinion, practical applications. So multi-material is where you might want to do a rigid material with a flexible material in it, or lining it, or a flexible with a support material to hold it in place that you dissolve away or break away. That's where the IDEX systems shine. So I think I checked out like the Copymaster 300 V2 a while ago. That was actually a really decent IDEX. It was a rebrand with a few added benefits of another company, a Chinese company I can't remember the name of. Hicktop, maybe? Maybe? Can't remember. I think IDEX is best for that. But yeah, you will have to sacrifice a lot of controllability and some print volume and financial. They're more expensive generally. Yeah, that's right. Teresa saying Joe was making the Wanhao D12 last night. I sent him some info about it. I don't know how he got on, because he was doing it at like 3 a.m. my time. I've gotten some okay prints off it, but they're not great, unfortunately. It's not the Wanhao I remember. Let's put it that way. Tenlog, thank you, not Hicktop. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, Tenlog makes the IDEX dual extruder printers. Appreciate it. Aiden, what would be my go-to if FDM wasn't an option? I suppose it would have to be resin, but I don't like resin much, because for practical printing, it's very messy and the parts aren't as durable and long-lasting as FDM parts, but they are high quality. It would probably be that, or just paying people for SLS like I used to. I used to send prints to Shapeways all the time, and they'd print an SLS and send back. But like I said at the start of the stream, SLS has its own issues as well. I'd probably be making a lot of stuff by hand still, quite frankly. And laser cutting. I used to use laser cutting all the time. I'd probably still be using that a lot. And I'm starting to use that more, because laser cutting is a lot faster than 3D printing. Parker, what 3D printer have I been using on my latest projects? I tend to use the Ender 3 a lot, because by testing my models on an Ender 3, I know that the community can make them, because it's not like the most accurate printer, but it's very affordable and it prints okay. prints quite good. I've been also using the longer K5 Pro recently because I'm reviewing it. That's also decent, better than I expected. And just a mix of different ones. But yeah, usually it's Ender 3s because I know that if I make a model and send it to you guys, you can print it. So like, this is on the Ender 3, and you guys might remember the puzzle egg. That was all on the Ender 3 as well. Because I wanted to make sure that everyone can print it, not just people with really high-end printers. Cars, do I have an Aussie-based supplier for good PLA? I buy tons of PLA through the Hobby King Australian warehouse because it's quite local. It's a few hours down the coast, but the filament arrives like in 2 days, and it's $10 for as much as I want. This is their cheapest silver PLA. Like, you just got to keep an eye on it to be on special. Other than that, Matt's Hub has really high quality filament. There's also 3D Phillies. There is also Kingdom 3D if you're in Queensland. He does eSun. If you're in Melbourne, there's 3D printer gear, I think. And if you're in WA, what's his name? E3D. No, that's the UK company. What are they called? X3D. X3D. They're in Perth, and they have good filament too. So it's a big country, but there is suppliers around. But yeah, Hobby King, mostly, just because it's cheap. I'm a cheap boy. Billy Rubin, Angus, sewing tutorials when? I am not good at sewing. I am learning. I am making slow progress. I've learned how to do blanket stitch. I said I do it wrong because I'm left-handed, so I do it backwards, apparently. Sewing machines are terrifying. So I wouldn't expect a tutorial from me anytime soon. I'd probably be more leaning towards a tutorial from you that I could learn from, Billy. Aiden asking how I experiment with non-planar slicers. The closest I can come to is the belt printer slicers, and they're very rudimentary. But I haven't experimented with slicers that move, like will do actual true three-dimensional printing. I haven't, no, sorry. Painter's Palace, what's the biggest size print I've done and in how many parts? The biggest one would be, I think now, the sword. I think that probably wins in terms of longest. So the good old CR30, that's probably the biggest now. I've done chunky stuff before, but nothing of this magnitude and in one go. Well, it's two halves joined together, right? But yeah, that's its secret sauce. Well, its magic trick. The belt printers can do huge prints. Aiden, will Hobby SLS ever be viable in my opinion? No, I don't think so. The issue, again, similar to the metal printers with SLS, is the chamber must be warmed up quite a lot, just below the sintering point. So that takes a lot of energy and takes a lot of materials to insulate it. And the biggest issue with SLS, and the one that they never really talk about, they always sort of shy away when you ask it, is the amount you can reuse and recycle. So when the nylon powders heat up and then cool down, they get fluffy. They lose their integrity. They get degraded. So you can only reuse a certain amount of the old powder that wasn't sintered into the part. And if you think about it, if you're printing like one thing in a chamber, and it's this high, so the chamber goes this high, but the chamber's like big, all that powder, you can only use so much of it again. So it's wasteful. It's really wasteful. And all the powder inside the part, of course. So I don't think it's ever going to be suitable for hobby. actually. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's a very good technology. It's great for industrial 3D nesting of tons of parts at once. It's perfect for that. But if you're just an individual who wants to print like something today, something tomorrow, something in a week's time, no, I don't think so. Aiden, any thoughts on mixing resins for SLA printers? Again, I don't do much SLA. I actually haven't done any resin printing this year because where the resin printers are in our new place is very dank and humid and moist and not very pleasant. But I would say the coolest thing that people are doing recently is they're mixing in pigments, like pearlescent glitter pigments into resin and then getting really good results out of that. But I don't think it makes much sense to mix different kinds of resin just because of how they cure differently. I'm sure it can be done, but you really need a good reason. But the pigments that people are adding, that's pretty cool. That's really something valuable. Painter's Palace, any thoughts into going into the cosplay area and making any suits? You have the skill. I really want to get into cosplay properly. I just need to find the time. And just very quickly, I may well actually just take a whole month off in January or February to just focus on learning something new. Because I'm sort of at that stage doing a channel for so many years that I really want to try something else. I'm not saying I'm going to disappear, but I might just step back to really try, because when you do this sort of thing, you're always on. Like, you're always thinking about what I'm going to do next, what video I'm going to do next, what I'm 3D modeling. It becomes your life to a degree, and I really want to try something else. And I might hate it. I might come back to this, or I might incorporate it into future videos. I don't know. Again, Maker's Muse, not 3D printing Muse. But yeah, cosplay is cool. I really do think cosplay is an awesome hobby. You learn so much. It's got such a broad scope of skills. Crazy Chicken 06. I love that name. How much would you guess you've ever spent on filament? Again, I'm really cheap, so I buy cheap filament, but I buy a few $100s at a time of it. I have a huge stock of white PLA because you always seem to run out of the basics. So white, I've already run out of black. I don't have any black PLA, so that's annoying. And I have tons of polyalchemy, but that gets sent to me because the polyalchemy team is just, they love seeing my prints and I give them a lot of business. So I have a lot of polyalchemy, so I have a lot of cool shiny filaments, but I tend to buy just basics for practical and test prints. I'd buy just basic colors and also what's cheap. So again, this was, I think, $18 Australian a kilo, this silver. And white can be quite cheap too. I don't tend to buy really fancy filaments myself. I just tend to buy the basics. Because that's often what's not sent to me for review and testing. Why don't I sound Australian? I think you'll find with Aussies is it's such a big country that we have our own little dialects. So sort of Sydney Australian accents are very different to, say, Queensland Australian accents or in WA and Perth and that. Australia is quite multicultural actually, especially Sydney. I went to a school called like International Grammar, where we had people from all different countries and different backgrounds. So we have a bit of a melting pot. Having said that, my family is Australian, and I do have that sort of Australian accent. I do emphasize certain words, and I do speak in the Australian coloured language, where swearing is just a way of life. I am very restrained on my streams. But yeah, it's how it is. I say certain things that really upset people though, like vase. I print in vase mode, and I do not agree with 3D printed patents. I really don't like 3D printing patents. Hate them. If that upsets you, then you should meet a full-blown Australian, who just has full Australian accent, like Crocodile Dundee times 10. License to drive, what do I think they add to TPU to get the different colors? For example, my white TPU isn't as flexible as my transparent TPU. Yeah, absolutely, you're right. I've found that different pigments affect the flexibility of TPU and the strength of it. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know like carbon black's quite common for a black, and that can affect rigidity and change how flexible stuff is. So they might have to change the plasticizers in them, and that, yeah. I got told once that green, this might be not true, but I got told by an injection molding guy, like a technician, that green was the worst pigment to add to plastics because it makes them the weakest. I don't know if that's true. I'd love to know more, but apparently green pigment was like, it makes the plastic structurally the worst out of all pigments to add. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. Oh boy. I might have to go get lunch soon. It's almost 3 o'clock. No, Taryn, you may not. What a shocking question. Shivel shut down. Thanks for the $2 though. Air conditioner, what's my opinion on 3D printing pens? I think they're a bit of a gimmick early on, but people have really found them valuable. I use my 3D printing pen to stick parts together like a 3D welder, like plastic 3D print welder. But there's channels on YouTube where people use 3D pens to make all sorts of crazy stuff. So some people really find them relaxing and therapeutic. I just think a lot of people bought them and realized how slow they were and that they're actually not as easy to use as they thought. So I don't think they're as popular as they were when they first came out. Do we have Edge of Tech? Oh, there you are. Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. I really enjoyed hanging out, dude. Anytime you want me on your stream, hit me up. Loved hanging out. Someone said I was from South Africa. I do find some of the accents overlap, but not much. South African tends to sound more like New Zealand, I guess. New Zealand accent. But no, very different. I could probably answer just a couple more questions, guys, before I head off. This has been a lot of fun. I'm trying to just keep track of the last few questions, but it's going very quickly. I probably won't make another video before Christmas. I was planning to do something with Popeye, but he's being very flaky at the moment, and I don't want to try to force something. So this will probably be the last one before Chrissy, but I do have a few stuff planned for afterwards, like the puzzle and a few reviews. Me Goose, how do I get the Cockatoo to come to my house? You can't stop them coming to your house. So sulfur-crested cockatoos are very successful, unlike a lot of other parrots in Australia that are suffering, which is really sad. But sulfur-crested cockatoos are really adaptive, and they're very successful, and they're very destructive and loud and dominant and smart. So they will come to you and ask for food, and once they know they can get something from you, they will always return for food. So I feed Popeye, so of course the other ones know that I feed Popeye, and they will come. And I don't always feed them, but I'll give them apple or something. And they vary in their personalities. It's pretty interesting. Some of them are very shy, some of them are very tame. Some of them don't like apple, some of them will take it from your hand. Very interesting. So yeah, you can't stop them. Can't stop them coming to you. Thanks for the $5, Kren. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy your Arvo. Carter, which printers do I keep after my most recent purge and why? I've kind of already answered it, but I keep the Ender 3s around because they're a good representation of the community and what the community's print quality is. And then I generally have a rolling review list of printers that I've said, okay, I'll review, and I take them in. And they're either really good and I keep them for a bit, or they're average and I might donate them, or they're really bad, in which case I kind of tear them up for parts. Something interesting that I did keep is the Cheaty Tech X Plus, because it has a good chamber for printing carbon fiber nylon. That's one of the best printers I have for nylon prints, so I do still have that one as well. But yeah, the Ender 3s, I use them all the time. As much as it pains me to say, they are actually quite good, and they've become very, very much a representation of what people can expect from a low-cost printer. Yeah, they're decent. They've gotten better. And yeah, just back on the Cockatoo thing. Designing the puzzles takes a lot of time, so I haven't got a new one for him yet, but in the new year, I'll definitely keep testing Popeye. Absolutely. Caleb, you're asking me a lot of times what filament I recommend in the US. I can't give you a recommendation because I'm not from the US. Sorry. You have to ask Joel in his stream in the next few days. Teresa, did I burn the Hoonie? Yeah, the Hoonie was a printer that arrived. It was almost like a joke. I got it back in 2018. It was so bad, it didn't even work from the factory, and I annihilated it on a I unboxed it on stream, it didn't work, and then I annihilated it in a review. It got torn into bits. The only things I kept were the linear rails. They were quite decent. Sorry, trying to find you guys again. Where is it? Awkward silence. Rob Jedi, what's my latest fighting robot? I haven't touched them since 2017. I had one called Vanguard that was a small vertical spinner with lots of slanted armor. That frame's still good. The electronics are busted, they're old, and the weapon system wasn't very good. So that's still good, I just haven't really done much on it. But again, as I said earlier, this year there hasn't been any events, obviously, but once they start rolling out again, I want to do ant weights to start, and then I might get into featherweights again. Maka, did I print Petg with the artillery sidewinder? No, I didn't personally, but oh no, I did. I printed a couple of prints, yes. So again, like I said to someone else earlier with Petg, you need to dry it first. So Petg will string and be awful by itself, so you need to dry it for a few hours in a dehydrator, and then you can print with it much better. The bed needs to be hot, like 90 degrees, and I would recommend some glue stick over that ultra base style surface. Then you should be okay. Yeah. It is difficult to stick down. You need a lot of heat. Thomas Cheek, what kind of music do I listen to? It's a range. I listen to an awful lot of synthwave, hence the acquiring of old retro analog synths. But I also listen to hardstyle a lot. That's an old favorite hardstyle, and a lot of really older like dance and techno. A lot of electronic stuff. Yeah, big in electronic. I don't like things with lyrics. I don't listen to songs with lyrics. All just melody based, melody driven is what I like. Cool. All right, guys, I really enjoyed this. As I said, probably last stream for the year. I think maybe last video. We'll see how we go. Thank you, Patrick. Really appreciate the dono. You guys are awesome. As I said at the start of this, I've still got a little post-it note from my sister saying, hey, congrats on 30k subs. And that was huge back in the day. That was only 2016. Yeah. So that was only like 4 years ago. I appreciate every single one of you. I really, this is what I love to do. I love to share what I learn. And as I said, I only learn through making mistakes. I just like to share what I've learnt so you can make less mistakes. But I just keep making cool projects, keep making things I'm interested in. and I really appreciate you coming along with me for the ride. And thank you again, Paul. You guys are awesome. Awesome. All right, I'm going to go have some food. Hope you're staying safe this Christmas. It's really not what everyone wanted. Some of my family's in quarantine over Christmas. Like, it's not what anyone wanted, but please stay safe. Do the right thing. Not going to lecture you because I'm sure you guys are awesome and introverts like myself anyway and don't want to go out. And I'll see you again very shortly here on Maker's Muse. Catch you later, guys. Bye.